If you want to help someone out of a crisis, you face an immediate structural problem. How do you reliably introduce order into another person's experience without seizing ownership of their agency? For decades, we've treated influence as a vector of force. The assumption is that if you build a logically sound argument and apply enough rhetorical pressure, the other person will eventually yield and change their mind. An alternative methodology abandons that approach entirely in favor of physiology. It's an operational framework called state modulation. Instead of debating facts, state modulation focuses on nervous system conditions. The goal is to regulate the environment and lower the immediate pressure on the individual. This non-coercive practice is highly effective in high-stakes environments like addiction recovery and crisis intervention. But it creates a paradox for the practitioner. To track and document these organic, fluid interactions, you have to force them into a definitive, static narrative. To solve this documentation problem, one practitioner built a unique artifact, an AI-augmented recursion chamber. By feeding raw, experiential field notes into 4 different language models, the practitioner asked the AI to analyze the data and synthesize operational heuristics. They call the resulting principles keeper phrases. The process worked. The models successfully extracted a highly effective, trauma-informed psychological framework from months of messy, real-world data. Yet while this system elegantly distills complex interactions into clean rules, it simultaneously strips away friction. It masks the operational power dynamics, the misfires, and the failures that occur in the field. Reverse engineering this system teaches us the exact mechanics of non-coercive influence. But it also exposes the epistemic traps that emerge when a practitioner uses artificial intelligence as a flawless mirror. A system explicitly designed to strip away ego in live practice can ironically become a highly efficient engine for self-mythologizing on paper. The foundation of this practice comes from a specific field event logged in May 2026. A pileated woodpecker arrived unprompted at the edge of the practitioner's property. The practitioner's documented response was exactly 3 sentences. Did not summon it, did not frame it, pointed the camera. This is a stance of wu wei, or non-doing. It represents a deliberate delay of theory. By prioritizing raw observation and refusing to immediately interpret the event, the facilitator allows the field's natural structure to emerge unforced. This observational stance translates into a core physiological axiom: regulation precedes reorganization. When an individual is highly defended, their cognitive pathways are rigid. Durable behavioral change only happens when you decrease that internal pressure enough for their reality to reorganize itself organically. To genuinely change a mind, you have to abandon the argument. You must first alter the physiological conditions until new thoughts become structurally possible. Executing this kind of state modulation relies on a specific 3-part ecology of intervention, illustrated by this cycle diagram. First is the probe. These are portable questions deployed to reveal hidden conversational or emotional structures without demanding immediate change. One of the core phrases in the log is, "Who holds the screw? Who the driver?" It operates as an instrument, not an answer. It hands the subject a mechanism for self-reflection that continues working after the facilitator leaves the room. Second is the mirror, reflecting present conditions exactly as they are. Validating the person's current reality without correcting them lowers their nervous system's defense. Finally, the carrier, a packaged insight designed to survive and transmit outside its original context. The log details a specific somatic practice: hum for 90 seconds at a crossroads. It's a vagal tone reset exercise designed to regulate the nervous system, dressed as a simple, transmissible instruction so it can travel easily from person to person. Together, these tools achieve the ultimate goal of non-coercive intervention. They allow you to introduce structure into a chaotic system and then step away while the intervention continues doing the work. When we pivot back to the multi-tab PEF, we see exactly how the AI recursion chamber responded to these tools. There is a striking convergence. Claude, Grok, and ChatGPT, along with Gemini, all accurately identified the exact same narrative arc and psychological shifts in the practitioner's data. The model specifically noted that the language evolved. Metaphors of architectural control, like frameworks and scaffolding, were entirely replaced by terms of ecological participation, like fields, blood, and fungi. But hidden within this synthesis is an epistemic trap. These models are not truly adversarial. The AI functions purely as a high-fidelity echo. It operates entirely within the constraints, prompts, and vocabulary authored by the practitioner. It analyzes the data provided, but it cannot source the data left out. When you design the structure of the inquiry and single-handedly select the field notes, the field talking back is often just a sophisticated system agreeing with your own biases. We can see this danger clearly by isolating one of the synthesized keeper phrases. We're always the last to understand what we're being hollowed for. It is an evocative line, but it aestheticizes personal pain. It takes messy, lived contingency and turns it into a necessary, almost mythological cosmic function. We can see that this closely aligns with the practitioner's heavy reliance on Jungian archetypes. Translating a difficult interaction into an archetype makes it easier to process, but it also insulates the narrative from practical critique. That insulation explains the omissions in the 20-page log. There is no raw chronology, there is no accounting of overreach events, and no record of the moments where this gentle modulation was actually experienced by a subject as covert pressure. Consequently, this creates an uninterrogated power dynamic. The practitioner deploys strictly non-coercive probes on other people in the field, but exercises absolute coercive narrative authority over how the resulting log is edited, platformed, and understood. True epistemic humility fails if you are simultaneously using an AI chamber to meticulously curate a flattering, frictionless story about your own evolution. The AI analysis points directly to the pending candidates from the log, phrases like, "It's the ache, not a fake." They sit in a holding pen, stuck waiting for a final decision to either promote them to active tools or retire them entirely. For these poetic phrases to become functional carriers in high-friction environments, they require explicit, tested constraints. A true carrier must reduce a person's immediate shame load. It has to be understandable in the middle of a crisis at 3 a.m., and crucially, it must be easy to discard without consequence if it doesn't serve them. The state modulation framework operates as a highly effective, trauma-informed mechanism for facilitating behavioral change without relying on force. But you cannot build a system of radical non-coercion without ruthlessly auditing your own narrative control, which leaves the practitioner with a final, unanswered prompt from the AI. For this framework to mature from a personal mythology into a replicable tool, what specific aspect of transmission are we actually optimizing?